It's Brian Preston, the money guy.
What are those pitfalls? What are the obstacles that, as a good trail guide, we can make sure that you don't fall into? Because we have experience. This is not aspirational stuff. We've actually walked on these trails. We've done the journey. If you will do what we tell you to do, you will be successful.
Now, I want to give you a lot of credit here, Brian, because we were talking in show prep about what are some of the pitfalls to watch out for. And we were all thinking kind of like high level, big ideas. And you were like, no, guys, you're 10 steps ahead. You forgot about the first step. And the first step is that operations matter when it comes to small business. Small business is more than just the small business.
This is something, everybody, you're a workout guy. I'm not. I work out because I'm just trying not to die. But one of the adages you see on working out is don't skip leg day.
Yep.
Because you see pictures of people all the time where they'll have big old biceps, big old broad chest, but then you look at their legs, they're always wearing pants. And you're like, why are they always wearing pants? It's because when you see them, they got little chicken legs.
Bird legs,
Because they skipped leg day. And I feel like small business owners, in a lot of ways, the stuff you see on social media is the biceps and the bench press.
Yep.
I mean, it is all the sexiness, and everybody's skipping leg days. And when I'm talking about leg days, don't skipping leg days, is those operations. And let's go through some of this. First of all, before we get into taxes, there's business structure.
Yep.
Like, are you going to be an LLC? Are you going to be an S corporation? Or are you going to be a C corporation? You know,
Sole
all
proprietor.
these things. Are you going to be a sole proprietor? How is there a transition? You will start one, will turn into something else as we have more success. All this needs to be taken into account. And then we transition into, and think about this, and I come from an accounting background, and I tell people all the time, if they go to college and they don't know what in the world they want to study, I'm like, go into accounting.
Yep.
Because accounting is the building blocks of all businesses. I don't care if they make cookies. I don't care if it's a restaurant. I don't care if they're financial planners. I don't care if they're attorneys. I don't care if it's Intel or what, Home Depot. They all are running profit and loss income statements. They're also all running cash flow statements. They're all running balance sheets. The place you learn how to do financial statements is when you study accounting and bookkeeping, and nobody wants to do that. And that's why everybody goes in business with us.
That's what I was going to say. What I think is amazing is I've been around you long enough, Brian, and you know, people come to us all the time asking about investing in businesses and stuff, and people always get so excited when they think that, oh, maybe I can get Brian to go into business with me because I know he's going to be the bookkeeper. I know that he's going to be the guy that's doing the stuff I don't know, that I did not know about. If you ever want to pick a really good business partner, it's not a bad idea to pick an accountant to be that business partner because they are well-versed in those types of areas.
Go look at how many Fortune 500 executives come from an accounting backgrounds. And here's why, and Daniel humored me on this. Bo hated this slide, by the way, because it's chaotic. And if you don't know, Bo is kind of an OCD, orderly type person. Daniel humored me because I wanted this to come at you, and Daniel gets me. I mean, me and Daniel, we're spirit animals, and the fact that, look at this. If you think about it, you got federal taxes.
Yep.
Okay, that's the big one. Everybody at least thinks about federal taxes. You think about business licenses.
Yep.
Who's thinking about that, by the way? When you go get a loan to buy a building or something, they're going to ask you, hey, do you have a business license? Secretary of State annual filing. This is one sneaks up on everybody. Payroll taxes, because payroll taxes, that sounds very simple. Well, of course, I'm running realize payroll taxes comes in many different forms. So you've got Social Security, you've got Medicare, you've got unemployment taxes, you've got workers' comp, all these things. And then, by the way, workers' comp is not even a payroll tax. It just comes out while you're doing your payroll taxes. It's all complicated. Sales and use taxes. This is one. People start these virtual businesses and they don't even realize, hey, if I'm selling a product, state probably wants to know about it. So you've got sales taxes. You live in a state like Tennessee, and you're like, hey, I live in this is a great state. They don't have an income tax here. And then you find out, oh no, they do have taxes. It's called franchise and excise tax. These are privilege taxes for having your company in their state and doing it. Do you think the average person goes because they're passionate about whatever it is? Like I said, whether it's making cookies, whether it is starting your own law firm, I don't care what it is. You will have to go through this gauntlet of regulations and understanding. Make sure you do the preparation on this because you don't want to start having some success, start having some traction, and then find out, oopsie, I didn't do any of the things I was supposed to, and now I have the government. I'm in business with the government because they're collecting penalties, interest, and as well as the additional taxes that I failed to pay earlier in the business process.
Now, when we were doing our show prep, Brian, I was like, you're right. I said, this is an ugly slide. This is dumb. Why are we going this in depth? This stuff, it doesn't make any sense. It seems scattered. It's all over the place. And you said exactly. Exactly. Because when you are a small business owner, you're thinking about usually one thing, and that's your business. And then all of a sudden, an IRS letter shows up, or a Department of Labor letter shows up, or a Secretary of State letter shows up. And just like these terms come flying at you when you're a small business owner, that kind of stuff happens. So if you're not prepared, if you're not thinking through this, you're ignoring a big part of what will be necessary for you to even be able to operate your business. So I'm going to give you credit and say you were 100% right on this one, but I still hate the slide. It drives me nuts, and I think it's all discombobulated and out of order.
So this is leg day, but so operations is important, bookkeeping is important. Make sure you're not neglecting that part of your business. But this second part is another transition point that I think small businesses struggle with. I struggled. I will personally tell you, this was a struggle for me. Was when do you know that you should hire somebody?
Yeah, when it comes to hiring, and we have counseled clients on this, we counsel other business owners, and we've learned this by doing it wrong a lot. We've learned that Goldilocks is your friend when it comes to small business ownership, because you don't want to hire too early, and you don't want to hire too late. You want to hire just the right amount of people at just the right time. I'm amazed, again, when I have my dreamer buddies who they come up with this great idea, like, hey, guys, I've got this idea for an app, and it's going to be incredible. And I'm like, awesome, dude. You're a soccer coach. You don't know how to code. I'm just going to hire a programmer. I was like, oh, okay, cool. You're going to pay a programmer. Where's that money going to come from? And it's just they've already hired 10 employees before they've made the first dollar of revenue. And then there's the other folks that are so afraid and so scared of entrepreneurship that say, oh, man, I can't take on that expense. Yeah, I know I'm working 100 hours a week right now, but, man, if I take that on, it's not going to be. The right answer is probably somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, and that's what you laid out a ton there, and I think there's a lot that I can reflect on. Is that I was that former, which was so scared, so tight with the money, because I just knew how hard it was to make it, that I was scared to hire anybody because I was like, well, what if this doesn't pay for itself? Because realize when you make any hiring decisions, it will, from a profit standpoint, you will in the short term go negative. You are going to take away a portion of what you've already created in the business. This is what I always think our legislative body, our government body doesn't understand about small business ownership is that when we hire folks, we actually take ourselves backwards.
Yep.
So hopefully we can take 3 steps forward later, but it's not instant. It's actually got quite a lag on it. So I think all small business owners have that fear. Plus there's the component that when I take on an employee, this person's fate and future falls on my shoulders a little bit too. It is a heavier thing than you've ever thought of when you're doing something that's already a risky endeavor based upon the stats we've already given. So I was scared. 2002 is when I started my first company. I didn't have my first salaried employee. I did have like hourly people that were Miss Priscilla and others, but Bo, you were my first salaried employee where I was offering benefits and other things. That was 2008. So 6 years.
And you were terrified of that.
Yeah, I was terrified. Now it's crazy to me because we will hire 5 at once, and it seems completely reasonable to do that multiple times during the year. And that's the part that I think you nailed it, and you said, I want you to be scared. It is like riding a motorcycle or working a knife. You should be scared of that tool because it can be dangerous if not used appropriately. So make sure you are measuring twice, cutting once on the hiring decision. I would give you the guidance of the Goldilocks for me is, as you start having success, be a little ahead of where you are on building this machine, because you don't want to wait until you're completely in need of an additional person. Because like I said, there's a lag, not only in you recouping the revenue, but also in them having the talent and the tools to where they're successful in actually adding value. So you've got to layer that and have a little bit of field vision to plan ahead so that they're actually successful in your business.
Another pitfall that we think you ought to watch out for when it comes to small business is that money management, and when we say money management, we are talking about literally budgeting and debt, matter. So too does time management. And I want to kind of start with money management a little bit, because I'm always amazed at small business owners who just have no concept of this, right? So I was having a conversation the other day with a small business owner, and she was telling me about what her gross revenues were. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. You know, her business has been operating for a couple of years, and it was in the six figures, and it was great. I was like, that's wonderful that your business is doing well. How much do you make? Like, what do you do? And she's like, oh, and she was like dumbfounded. She's like, oh, well, you know, if I need some, I just spend this here, and I'll just, you know, I'll pull money out and spend this there. And it kind of blew my mind. She could not give me, like you talk about QuickBooks, she could not walk me through, okay, here's my top line, and this is where my expenses fall, and this is what my personal take is. And she was lost. And I told her, I was like, you realize to understand whether your business is working or not working, or whether it will continue to work in the future, you need to have a bead on those metrics. You need to understand, just like with your personal finances, when you first start out, odds are you had to put together a budget. Hey, this is how much I'm going to have going here, and this is how much here, and this is how much here. Starting a business is no different. You ought to understand exactly where your dollars are flowing, because it's real easy when you're the boss and the money comes into the cash register. You need money, you just take it out of the cash register. That's a dangerous place to get into, because it will cause you to get lazy and careless when it comes to making your business spending decisions.
I think that a lot of business owners, you hear about it, and this is an important tool, but I'm going to tell you where there's a fallacy in this too. Delegate as much as possible, and people will go hire, you know, you'll hire a bookkeeper, you'll hire people who are doing all the things that you don't want to, and that's a good thing in practice if done effectively. But realize nobody's going to love your business like you love your business. Right. So part of your responsibility with loving your business is you better know your numbers. I mean, I am shocked at how many people will tell me, and look, we have built this bad thing, and the fact that I think about some of the entrepreneur organizations we're a member of, they will have a revenue goal. You can't even apply for membership unless you have revenue of like $1 million a year. So what do small business owners want to do? They want to get to $1 million of revenue as fast as possible. That's not the metric to look at, guys. Profit, exactly what Bo was talking about. Profit, after you take in what you're going to get through revenue, take all your expenses out, what's actually left for you, the person that took the risk and is growing this for your family and the legacy and other things, what is left? Because I have so many experience shares. Like I can think about a manufacturing company that I used to work with. The owner wanted to get his revenue up to $10 million as fast as possible, but I blew his mind when I did a comparison of prior years, because he reached the $10 million, and I said, you realize 3 years ago you actually made more money.
Made more money on less revenue.
What? He was like, I'm twice as big as I was revenue-wise now. I'm like, you're taking a lot of projects that aren't profitable. You're just trying to get that top-line number so high that nobody's paying attention to actually how much you get to keep. And that's a problem with, you've got to have the budgeting, you've got to have the money management, you've got to know your numbers well enough that you're not taking on unprofitable jobs, you're not taking on employees before you need to. Because I think a lot of us, and by the way, we've done some TikTok reaction videos, and everybody thinks when you start a business, everything's deductible. So, well, you know what? If everything's deductible, I can go spend at ease because a portion of this is going to be paid through tax savings by the government. That sounds great in theory, but in reality, you might be waking up this spending beast that's actually taking away from what you can have for your family. And ultimately, that's why you take these type of risks, is that you are trying to build for freedom of time, freedom to do life like you want with your family and the community, but it's also so that you can ultimately start building some profit as well.
Yeah, and I think we'd be remiss if we did not say this. I am so often saddened when I see a small business that has the perception of being really, really good, meaning they have a high revenue number and they have a good product. And then they ask me to come in and kind of take a look at what they have going on and look at their books. And I see that they're just riddled with debt. They have lines of credit. They have credit card debt they're holding in the business. It is no different than with your personal finances. Debt is not something that you should use cavalierly. It should be treated like a chainsaw. And if you're a business owner and you just have that revolving line of credit because the bank said they would extend it to you and you're just using it willy-nilly, you do not have yourself in a healthy position if you don't have a strategy for what you're doing with that debt and how you're handling it. And we've seen it too many times where it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And these companies implode because they just can't service that debt anymore. So make sure you're keeping an eye on the dollars coming in, dollars going out, to know that you have a healthy and functioning small business.